In 2012, I was approached about doing a verbal history of this area. So it was our centennial, it was New Mexico's centennial. And these folks wanted to do a verbal history that extended beyond the boundaries of Albuquerque, Santa Fe, let's just say the Great Berlin Wall. I thought that was a great idea, but I thought we needed to include video along with that audio and make it a little bit more of a historical presentation that could be good for television or online or whatever. Soon after that, Platicas was born. Our first interview was with the now deceased Clarence Fielder, just a wonderful, wonderful man who grew up in Las Cruces. He didn't realize it at the time, but he suffered through segregation in schools, quite a bit of outward prejudice, the idea that the university would not allow blacks to attend except during the summers. A lot of issues that would have made a lesser man bitter. But Clarence wasn't bitter. He was a wonderful human being. Great teacher, taught history here in the schools. Everybody knows him. And it was just such a pleasure to cover that story that it really turned me on to the whole process. And so in the following couple years, we ended up doing a total of 14 episodes for what we called Season 1, which is now on PBS. In fact, we're now completing Season 2. Season 1 was mostly interviews with people in this area about this area, that is Las Cruces, southern New Mexico, very, very much restricted to this area. Season 2, we branched out. Our first episode will be on the Mescalero and Chiricahua Apache nations, and it is just fascinating. So interesting to listen to the history and more so some of the problems that modern day Chiricahua and Mescalero Apaches are facing, modern day problems they are facing, and finding out that their problems are very similar to the problems that we're facing here in Las Cruces as well, and that is that a lot of our youth, they are no longer interested in the local culture, or not as much as they used to be. So they don't learn the language. We suffer the same issue here. A lot of my relatives don't know how to speak Spanish, and quite honestly, my Spanish is terrible. I do know all the dirty words, but you know, there's a limit to how far you can get with that vocabulary. They have the same problem, and so the issue with many of the elders within that group is that they're going to lose their history, they're going to lose their heritage, they're going to lose what it means to be a Chiricahua or a Mescalero Apache. And so that's a very good episode. And all the episodes from that point forward, we covered the Bataan Death March, which is quite significant in this area. We covered the 100-year celebration of the invasion, or I should say the 100-year memorial of the invasion by Pancho Villa into Columbus. Our feature films tend to be very specific. So we write a script, we go through a scenario, we put together very precisely what we want to see in every scene, what the shots are going to look like, what the sounds are going to sound like, and then we put together this movie and try to match as closely as possible all that original pre-planning, or in our language, pre-production. For these documentaries, it's just the opposite. So we have a general idea of what we want to talk about, but we don't want this to be scripted. We want to get what our presenter thinks is important. Because sometimes they'll go in a completely different area that we think it's going to be about. So when we talked to Henrietta Stockel, we thought maybe it was going to be sort of like an overview of the Indian nation, how they got to where they are, historical background, and in fact there was a lot of that. But what we quickly discovered was that many of the elders were concerned, deeply concerned, that their culture was dying. Well, that's not something we scripted. That's all just came about through this interview process. And a lot of them are no longer with us. Therefore, their stories could have been lost. Through this medium, their stories will live on forever. Some of them will show how people can overcome insurmountable obstacles and not come out as a bitter, bitter person. They can overcome those obstacles and still be a decent and contributing member to society well into old age and make an impact on all of us.